Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the One Nation of Gamers Hearthstone Summer Circuit. We just had two French players duking it out, Escota versus Weasel, with Weasel coming out on top. And now we have probably the more known players today, the more experienced players, and the tournament, the players that you're probably a little bit more excited to see. We have one side, Tom 60229 and Hoj, two players that have been in the tournament scene for a very long time. Tom with like the BlizzCon qualification from Taiwan last year. He's been just playing in every single qualification tournament possible. He's made it to Gfinity. I'm sure he's made it to other tournaments in the West as well. Hoj, on the other hand, he won via game number 2. He played in via game number 3, and he's like looking to be like one of the hotter players of the summer.
Yeah, didn't he get top 8 in VA game number 3, if I remember rightly?
He might have.
I remember a video they made of him, and he was walked outside the castle, and it was like snowing. It was Let It Go was playing. I think that was him. So yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, I remember that as well.
He's played in a lot of qualifiers himself, mind you. I always see his name in the Gfinity qualifiers, some of the other qualifiers I've played in. So he does work hard as well.
He plays in like almost all the ONOG European qualifiers as well. I always see him in the bracket, and he always does really well. Actually, he always makes it at least 3 rounds deep, but this time he's looking to go all the way, and he probably is in a good position right now, just judging by the hands.
Yeah, he's looking really good start there. Got the wild growth and the 4-drop. I think two of the most important things for Druid most of the time, getting that early 4-drop out, which it comes even earlier with the wild growth. But the thing with Druid right now, what is your thoughts on Druid in Conquest? Because there's a lot of mixed opinions about the class in general right now.
I actually like Druid these days, simply because all the decks that are really good against it are not really popular these days. Like Mech Mage isn't too popular. Tempo Mage was like popular like 3 weeks ago, but it's died down a lot lately. Mech Shaman, another good Druid counter, that's not popular at all either. And even though mid-range Zoo, it's kind of popular, mid-range Demon Zoo, of course. It's basically like, yeah, I'd rather maybe want to run Handlock or the Malagos Warlock. So it feels like Druid, especially against someone that you can predict, seems to be pretty good.
Yeah, Tom actually brought Druid last time, if I remember rightly, and it ended up falling short for him, unfortunately. Something that's just caught my eye here is the parrot in the webcam, just kind of grooming itself there. I was looking at it and said, "What is that?" And I just realized it's a parrot. So,
oh my god, it looks like I couldn't tell at first. I thought it looked like a caterpillar, but no, it's a parrot.
It's a very big parrot as well, kind of weighty parrot. Lots of parrot. I have a family who have a lot of parrots and a lot of breeds of parrots, so I do know my breeds of parrots quite well, but I cannot tell what that is.
I'd be really excited if he played Captain's Parrot, but probably won't be seeing it out of Druid.
No, unfortunately not. Maybe that parrot will see play one day. Maybe when Captain Greenskin becomes kind of a top tier tech choice or something, we'll see some parrots. Sorry.
I just want to point out that both these players actually, coincidentally, they're playing on their phones right now. Hoj has kind of a problem with his Battle.net client on his PC. So even though we can see his webcam, he's actually staring down on his phone, playing on his phone. Meanwhile, Tom, he actually lost power at his house. So he actually is playing at an internet cafe on his phone right now.
Wow. See the extent these players will go through to playing these tournaments. Now they're hungry. They want it. They're not going to let technology be their downfall.
Yeah, exactly. And oh, you know what? This hand just keeps getting worse and worse for Tom. I kind of feel bad for him. Like not getting like that card draw and pretty much getting like 5 of the most situational cards that he could have possibly gotten here. Meanwhile, facing a Druid that got Wild Growth early on, and he has like his choice of like 3 or even 4 or 5 amazing like turns that he could do. He could Ancient of Lore, that's always good, of course. Dr. Boom on 6, sure, why not? Or rather, Dr. Boom on turn 5. Or you can go for the Shade and Pilot Shredder. Just 3 amazing choices here. He can even go with Sylvanas if he feels like it.
And on the flip side, Tom can do very little. He can play Unstable Ghoul next turn. If he draws, he needs to draw some things, any kind of card draw. A Battle Rage would be really good for him. But like you said, he can do anything here. He's so flexible. I quite like Oh, he decides to actually keep onto the coin here, so he just places the Lannis out. I would have liked to see a Doctor Boom.
I guess his reasoning was that the boom bots probably wouldn't have gotten that much value against this type of board. So I think that kind of makes sense. I don't mind that play. I don't mind not playing Dr. Boom, but I would have to like discuss the merits of the other choices as well.
So Tom actually develops a little bit of a board here. It's not that threatening right now, but he is going to force some armor onto Tom when he decides to clear this unstable ghoul, and this Sylvanas won't be able to pop its death rattle straight away. But again, Host is another situation where he has many plays available to him.
Wait, are you sure it's not that threatening? Okay, if Sylvanas clears off that ghoul, Froggy Berserker comes down, 2 Whirlwinds comes down. Let's say Hoj develops like 2 minions on the next turn, so there'll be 7 minions on the board. Or hold on, 3, 4. No, there's gonna be 6 minions on the board, 2 Whirlwind effects. That's gonna be 12 extra damage, plus like the Armorsmith damage, plus the Gnomish Inventor damage, plus the Warsong Commander damage. That adds up to, let me try to do math here, 19 damage. So if you draw something like a weapon, that's game over, and that's assuming that only 1 minion is developed here.
So he actually did well.
War Axe, that wins. He wins the game.
Wow. See, I said it wasn't threatening from just kind of looking, kind of small body minions, like the Warsong was the most threatening thing here, but actually looking at Tom's hand, like you said, is actually very scary. He's got lethal just from drawing that weapon. Mm-hmm. And Hosh didn't really respect that Warsong at all, but I mean, a Sludge Belcher probably would have been a safer play there, but he decided to go for the card draw.
I actually believe that's exact lethal. Okay, I hope I did this math right. I'm glad he attacked beforehand. I think Hoj is not going to believe it. He's like, what the hell just happened here?
It almost looks like in Hoj's camera as well, because he's looking at his phone. He's not actually looking at the screen. I just expect him to look up in like a moment and go, oh.
Yeah, I want him to look up and be like, what just happened here? And look at that, exact lethal here. That's amazing.
And 17 armor to boot. Wow. So Hoj just doesn't seem that responsive to actually just patron doing patron things.
I mean, really great play from Tom though. Like to have the foresight to set up that Warsong Commander on the previous turn. I don't think many people would have had the foresight to go for that. He put himself on a draw to win, and that was just amazing. Probably one of the best games we've had so far. Just like being really rewarded for making those like kind of like risky plays that have high reward. And we saw Hoj, he pretty much had the dream Druid start, but he didn't have the Wrath, he didn't have the swipes early on to get rid of like the patron minions, and he played probably a bit too greedy there, I'd say, going for like an Ancient of Lore where he had even the option to, I think Dr. Boom, even though it would put more minions on the board, it probably would have been better because the Boom bots probably would have killed some minions.
Yeah, those boom bots kind of set up a little bit of protection. It's not very guaranteed that you'll take out what you need to, but at least it puts that threat in your opponent's mind on what if this boom bot hits my Warsong, or what if my boom bot hits this. So, yeah, I would like to have seen a Sludge Belcher there, but of course we know much more information than Hoj did at that time. So, as far as he looked, his hand was looking fantastic, and he had all the options he needed. But unfortunately for him, he didn't expect to take 22 damage in one turn.
Oh my God.
Which you should. You should with this deck. It's time and time again, you see these giant Frothing Berserkers come out, and they just destroy you.
Well, we're gonna seeing the good old Druid versus Hunter matchup in the next game, and this is gonna be. It might be a painful one, to be honest, because it looks like Tom will be player 1. And if you've watched any Hearthstone in the past 2 or 3 weeks, you'll know that there's currently a spectator bug going on right now, where if anytime choose 1 happens, the spectator client just like completely bugs out. So Druid of the Claw, Ancient of Lore, Keeper of the Grove, Wrath, Ancient of War, and what other card am I missing? Cenarius. All of these actually bug out the client, so bear with us, because I'm sure we're going to have like plenty of bugs in this game.
Is it when it just leaves whatever you choose big on the screen in front of you and just
Yes.
covers it? Yeah, we had
That
that problem the other day.
it has literally happened, and it happens with every single Druid game. So very common here, but we've learned to deal with it. We can play around it if we
Well, we ju-
know if we know what our opponent is going to play. If we know the spectator has this card in his hand that says "bug out the client," we can play around that.
so he actually gets the Huffer here, putting a lot of pressure on the Druid already. So this is Tom's Druid, right? And
Yes.
yeah, Hojo's Center. Okay. And we just got some news that the bird on Hojo's shoulder is actually a budgie, and his name is Pidgey. Bit of Pokemon there. He's not a pigeon though.
Yeah.
My parents have two budgies, and they're quite boring to be honest, as far as parrots go. So I've seen some very interesting breeds, and some of them are just crazy.
Yeah, you actually pronounced the name of that bird correctly. I would have said like Yugi or something. Something completely wrong.
That's from playing so much Pokemon when I was little, and when I was older. Actually, Pokemon just never dies; just keeps coming back. But anyway, on to this game. Tom actually gets to develop a Shredder here. Can't actually deal with the Huffer straight away, which is a bit unfortunate. Well, he could actually use the swipe, but it just seems quite a bit lackluster. So he's not valuing his health as much, trying to get the Shredder here. The Shredder should be able to deal with the Huffer. But we do see a High Mane in Hojo's hand, and that's always a card that Druid do struggle with in the mid game.
Oh yeah, definitely. You pretty much like the game really comes down to whether the Druid can stabilize enough so that they set up a board on their turn 5 in order to deal with their opponent's turn 6 high main. Usually that answer is like if they can somehow set up like a Lotheb or a Sylvanas up on turn 5 with the help of Innervate or Wild Growth. If they can somehow set up like Piloted Shredder, maybe they have a swipe in their hand somehow, like, and they also have to have like kind of like a Keeper of the Grove in their hand. If not, the Druid's often going to be in a lot of trouble, and it seems like one of those games where the Druid definitely is looking completely on the back foot here.
Yeah, the Hunter taking that really aggressive initiative in the first 4 turns, just smashing loads of damage into the Druid. That Huffer doing a lot of work. He's done 9 damage so far. I was looking at that play there with the Glaivezuka. I was wondering if he got the buff onto the Scientist, he might have opted to trade. Because he would have had a clean trade on the Shredder, and then his weapon might be able to clear up the Death Rattle. But he unfortunately got on the Huffer. I don't know if that changed his line of play from there. Maybe just taking a more aggressive stance.
Yeah, it also probably depends a lot on what traps he has in his deck, and it just wildly depends these days. Especially, I don't know if you've been watching the Hearthstone Pro League, the PvP Live League, where like they just like throw in like random, like every player just throws out random traps every single time because they can rebuild their decks between every single game. I've seen 3 snipes, 2 misdirections, and of course like the standard like random snake traps everywhere, in addition to explosive and freezing.
See, I was encountering misdirection on ladder a lot earlier in the season. It was very strange. I just didn't expect it, and when I saw it once, I was like, okay, this guy just ran misdirection, and then it hit me again. I was just like, okay, and then it was about 4 or 5 players who were running misdirection. It's just weird.
Well, there was actually a #1 ranked legend deck with misdirection in it. Well, we see, of course, the choose 1 bug, so we're going to play around that bug. We're going to try to get back into the game as soon as possible. But Drew the Claw really messing with us today.
These Druids, they're just messing around with us in general, and everyone in Hearthstone right now. Especially if you're a producer and trying to produce content, Druids are a bit of a nightmare. We should just ban them. Surely it'll make more interesting games, right?
Ban Druid. That'll be great. The players would love that.
Come on, how much has Druid really changed in the last year? Not that much. It's still the same deck. Druid is one of the classes I hope one day gets not so much of a class overhaul, but it just changes enough that maybe a new type of Druid comes out.
Well, that's unfortunate. It's going to be snake, or rather, it's going to be explosive trap here. But pretty much, Hoj will play out his hand, and I don't really see a way for Tom to get back in this game.
Yeah, the high main hasn't been dealt with yet. And if it comes to this point in the Druid Hunter match where the high main just can't be dealt with, even at this point you can Wrath it, but you still got the 2/2 tokens to deal with. And you even drew a Keeper, and it still won't be enough. It's Yeah, it's looking like it looks like Hojo will take this game.
The best possible hand, but just a few turns too late.
Which is sometimes the case with Druid. They just draw everything they need later. Like you need that wild growth early, you need that Wrath early. The keeper, like Innovate Keeper, is so strong as well against like these more aggressive mid-range hunters. But it looks like he's just gonna fish for a card here, just see if he can get anything that will bring him back in this game.
Well, he knows his deck best, but I don't believe. Oh wow, that's amazing! Did you see what just happened here?
He's sustained.
Well, more than that, Choose 1 was used twice in the same turn, and the client didn't bug out. That was amazing. That's probably the most amazing thing I've seen related to Hearthstone today.
Well, I wouldn't count your blessings. It's going to happen again.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen again. It happened here where the match was pretty much over. But I bet we'll get to a situation where it's a really tight turn and the rope will be going down, you'll have to make some decisions, and then the client will bug because of Druids.
I would actually kind of love it if like it actually was a bug in the real game where like it would bug out your screen and the Reddit would be like complaining, having their pitchforks up, shaking their fists. It'd be awesome. I love the drama.
So it's 1-1 here. Not too surprising. These two players are exceptionally talented. So I was expecting a bit of back and forth here, and they both have Druid and Warlock left. So they have kind of mirror lineups apart from those Warlocks, which we talked about earlier, which can really much be anything that's in the meta because 3 decks are really solid right now. So I'm curious. What do you know the players well enough to know what they lean towards as far as Warlocks are concerned?
Not at all.
Okay.
Well, Tom, I remember he brought Handlock to the to BlizzCon, but it could be anything at this point. And Tom is also one of those players, like we see he's probably going to bring Malagos Warlock here. He's one of those players that's very well in tune with the Western scene, and I know like a lot of players from China, from Asia, they're not as well in tune, so they kind of play their like more insular metagames. But Tom, like, he talks with some foreigners or non-Taiwanese people. He talks to some Western people, and he knows what everyone else is playing, especially because he's played in all these qualifiers. He knows what, like, the qualifying players are playing.
And that's kind of the steps you need to take to become kind of the next level of a pro player, really. Especially someone like Tom, who's kind of almost region locked in outside of the really competitive regions like NAEU are probably the higher kind of level of playing field. There's a lot of very good players and sponsored players out there. So Tom having kind of like the presence of mind that in order to become better, he needs to kind of dip into these other regions, into these other meta games. So when he does play in these qualifiers, which he plays in a lot of them, he has the knowledge about the meta he needs to be successful, and it's proven well for him.
Yeah. Really important Al here. If he hadn't gotten the Al off, it would have been just an amazing board for Hoj. Power Overwhelming, Void Terror, just would have swung the game completely around. And that's one of the cards, or like some of the cards that we were talking about, that make this matchup favorable for the mid-range Demon Zoom a lot of the time. Just getting a Power Overwhelming early against, for example, a Flame, an Imp Gang Boss, and then like Void Terroring it. It's just a board that the mid-range Malagos Warlock can't deal with at all.
You know, Hoj actually had an option there to get a big Void Terror with Power Overwhelming because the egg was going to go anyway, and the egg was pretty useless. But he decided against it here, and he decided to put more value in this Void Caller. Walker, sorry. There's so many Void cards.
Yeah. I think he's just really afraid of BGH. He knows like this Malagos Warlock deck typically runs 2 BGH. And if he went for the power play, he would have gotten a 7 attack minion, and that would have just like won the game almost immediately.
Yeah, the tempo swing would have been really, really in Tom's favor. But Tom does have that Forestun sitting there with the Dark Bomb, so he does kind of have the puzzle ready to be kind of set up by the turn 6 play if he goes for it. Fortunately, he doesn't have a dragon here. That would have worked out really nicely for him if he had.
And even though Hoj, he missed the Power Overwhelming Void Terror on the egg on the previous turn, like he gets another chance here, especially since like, okay, The Imp Gang boss won't be played here, but he still gets to go for that play of the power overwhelming Void Terror, and there's not really an answer for it, especially since we keep talking about how there's only one owl in this deck. This Void Terror is not going to get silenced.
No, that silence is gone. And we see you use the Dark Bomb there, Tom, so you valued the removal of that Void Terror. And this is a big play right now. Just a 4/4 and a 3/5, especially on turn 3 as well. It's just a massive swing for the mid-log. But he's just going to jam that for us in any way. So he's not waiting for the Dark Bomb, he's not going to be waiting for the Malagus, which we were talking about earlier. I guess he has a lot of cards in his hand which can help him sustain longer, and getting them reduced has quite a lot of value. Like dropping that Argus to 3, dropping that Big Game Hunter. So like there's removal there, there's sustain for the healing, and there's kind of like some more bulkier minions like Twilight Drake. So I think this Farason's good actually.
Yeah. And it's just really awkward for Hoj to deal with it. Like, how does he clear this off the story zone? By Argusing his 4/4 and trading off a 5/5 with a 5/5? That feels really bad for an aggressive deck.
Feels bad for midlock. They just want to get as much value as they can from their smaller minions, but right now he has to sacrifice quite a bit of power on the board to deal with it, unless he decides to go for the implosion, but even then, it makes no difference. You still have to throw a minion away.
Really difficult turn here. Okay, developing a resilient board. I like that. He has to end the game pretty soon, though.
So now Tom has a reduced hand, and he can play this turn a lot differently to if he hadn't played Farason. So he's got an option of a Blackwing Corruptor here, so that could take out the Abusive, but that still leaves the 5/5 kind of sitting there, so it's quite a tough turn. He might have to set up a wall with the Argus as well. Okay, so he opts to take out the Argus over the 3/2. Unless he... Oh yeah, he's just using the Imp. Oh, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, and I would say pretty good position here. We know almost certainly this this Dr. Boom will be coming out in this turn, and it'll be met with a Big Game Hunter, and it's just really that Emperor Thorazane really coming into play here. Being able to play all these cheap minions out, getting essentially 3 or 4 innervates out. That's pretty huge here. Getting a huge tempo swing, and we keep talking about how Power Overwhelming is one of the key cards in this matchup, combination with Void Terror sometimes, but with the double BGH that is in Tom's deck, and with the fact that these Power Overwhelmings keep sticking in Hoj's hand and he hasn't been able to use them, it's just really unfortunate that mid-game, rather the mid-range demon, or rather the Malagos Warlock, sorry, is able to stabilize so well here, up to even 26 life with board control.
Look at the swing on that turn. Take out the 7/7, get a 4/2 out of it, and get those 2 minions down as well. So it's the Malalock now who's kind of had a mid-range board swing here, taking control of the board here, and it's looking, like you said, those Power Overwhelmings are just so good on kind of like tokens and like 1-drops, 2-drops. But Hoj has always been in a situation where he's had some quite valuable minions on board, which he doesn't want to throw away so easily. And he's, like I said, Tom's managed to climb back because he hasn't got the value from these cards. They've just kind of sat in his hand, very kind of like deadweight.
Yeah. Some of like the most deadweight cards you can find in his hand right now. Like, nothing works here. What do you Power Overwhelming? What do you Implosion, really? I would have to guess that's probably what you go for, Implosion. Maybe the Void Caller, but then you're still feeling kind of sad. Oh, and even a 2-Plosion.
And the bomb didn't even kill anything. Not looking good for him.
Oh, that's certainly an understatement.
So, Tom's gonna... Oh, he gets the Flame Imp as well. Wow. But he does have the Mal'Ganis for next turn. Turn 9 will be coming up, and if Tom doesn't clear this whole board, he's going to have some very bulky demons. Is it? Oh, he's going to use the Dark Bomb.
Demon, singular.
Demon,
I
yeah.
guess. And this is going to be one of the loneliest Melganuses you'll ever see.
So, so Tom actually used his second dart bomb there as well.
I don't think like you necessarily need the combo in this matchup. I know you're referencing like typically you need the combo of Dark Bombs and Malagos to win it, but this matchup I feel is more about stabilizing, and I think Tom has already done that, and I think he's pretty much secured this game so far with the second BGH in his hand.
Yeah, I agree with you, isn't it? He knows that, like you said, stabilizing is more important. I mean, Malagos on his own is a 412. If you came down to if he drew it next turn and he played it, what would Hoge be able to do? Like it'd be so difficult for him to deal with it.
Twisting Nether Tech into.
Oh, the silence. Okay, so.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting, actually. Tom actually runs 2 owls, so I would say pretty good in this matchup. But I think where you're making the cut for the second owl is your zombie chow. So just a different take on the deck, and I've actually heard like some arguments that 2 owl is just superior to zombie chow because they're both like almost equally as good against zoo, but owl is just like it's better when you draw it later on. So it actually makes a lot of sense. In addition, owl I feel is like better in a lot of matchups overall, like the non-aggro matchups.
Yeah, I agree, and well, Tom takes that. And I agree with what you said about the owls. I think owls have a lot more value. The thing with Zombie Chow is it does lose tremendous amounts of value the later the game goes on, whereas an owl can really swing things for you, depending on what death rattle you silence, or if you just need to silence a taunt to kind of punch lethal. So I think that's probably a kind of a better way to go. I've kind of fallen out of love with Zombie Chow recently, myself, in some of my decks, because I hate drawing him later. It's just... when you top deck a Zombie Chow, turn 10 or something, it's just such a letdown. Just don't want to be put in that situation anymore.
Well, I hope you find another Zombie Chow someday. That Zombie Chow or that card will be a very lucky guy. So we're gonna see possibly our favorite matchup next game, Druid versus Druid.
Oh wow, this is an exciting match for you guys. Who draws Wild Growth first? That's basically what it comes down to.
Well, I was more referring to how Druid versus Druid is probably our production crew's favorite matchup.
Oh, right, yes, of course. Oh, wow. So, who do you think is going to crash the client first? I guess that's the big question.
So, basically, who uses a Keeper first, who uses a Wrath first, who uses a... Oh, there it is. Druid versus Druid. There we go. Wild Growth from Hoge. We're going to see a Wild Growth from Tom. We're going to see some awesome choose one effects. And we already see 3 in the opening hand so far. That's awesome.
I'm going to put my money on... So Hoge gets the Wild Growth, takes him to 4, takes him to 5. Tom gets the coin. I'm going to say Hoge is going to crash it first.
Okay, so you're actually predicting this. Okay. So another question is, how much of the game are we actually going to see? 50%? 60%? Less? More?
We know Druid's gonna win, so ultimately, we know which class is gonna come victorious here. So it doesn't really matter. We just get some crashes to desktop, whatever. Oh wow! See, this is the fun of Druid.
Yeah. Well, actually, Tom had the option to use the first choose one effect with the coin Keeper the Grove. Obviously, not the best play, but we would have given him points there.
So Hoge actually has 2 opportunities here to break the spectator client. Oh,
well,
it doesn't.
Well, you need to be on the view of the player that you're observing. So only Tom can actually break the spectator client because we're not switching perspectives.
Oh man! So I was wrong from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, but it's very likely that Tom will break the spectator client this turn because it seems like Drew the Claw is his like really only decent play.
Maybe Tom is considering whether he wants to upset the production crew right now. It depends how much value he has for the production crew.
Yeah, whenever I play Hearthstone, I'm always considerate of the people spectating me. Oh, he goes for the other choose one effect instead. Wrath, perhaps? If he goes for Wrath this turn, what is he looking to set up? I think his main concern is that if he goes for the Druid of the Claw this turn, he'll have nothing but like perhaps an Azure Drake or a Swipe on the next turn, neither of which are too strong. And he might want to go for the Thorzen out on turn 5. But if he does that, is he losing? Is he going for like not enough tempo? And wow, that's amazing. The client didn't crash.
Tom is the chosen one. When he plays Druid, no clients crash. He is a bit, but you are right. He is a bit stuck here. I mean, the problem with playing this Druid now, if he just gets taken out, is the Shade's probably going to stick around, and the Druid of Claw is going to stick around. And if Hoj decides maybe to go for the, he can go for a Sylvanas here, which would be really strong. A Keeper would help him clear that Druid. Yeah, Tom's kind of playing a bit from behind here.
Yeah, Sylvanas is just really excellent against Druid players, especially. Against Druid, it's probably like almost the only class that you want to play Sylvanas on an empty board into, because the only ways to deal with Sylvanas are like inefficient ways. Like Keeper of the Grove silences it, but you still get a 5/5 minion, which is still really good. Swipe Hero Power is not very effective either, and you take 5 damage anyway. Plus, like this board, it just ensures that Tom, or rather that Hoj, will be ahead on board for the next few turns. And this also has to do with the fact that Hoj was player 1 and he got Wild Growth. So he's effectively 2 mana ahead every single turn. We're just going to make some for some huge tempo swings.
And he keeps drawing these minions. Like if he drops his Shredder, I mean, he's got the choice. He's got a lot of choices here he can make, and he could either go for more board here, or he could go for Force of Nature, which I don't think is probably the best. Hero Power, play another Druid in Taunt. That seems pretty good to me.
Yeah, I like just going as like as much pressure as possible.
I mean, he does leave. Oh, okay.
I did not expect this, but yeah, this actually seems pretty good. Yeah, he was really worried about like the spell power on his opponent's side of the board, and he could have decided to like make some trades, but this basically ensures value out of the Sylvanas. So really heads up play from Hoj. Meanwhile, Tom pretty much playing his only play, the only way for him to get back in this game. He knows that Savage Roar is just lethal, but he can't really play around that.
Another thing with that play as well, when he ran the Sylvanas in, it made it very vulnerable to swipe as well, which he probably doesn't want it just getting swiped off the board with no death rattle. So yeah, good presence of mind from Hoj there to do it. And it looks like he's just going for the all-in here. Is that just lethal? I haven't done the maths. Oh yeah, so it... No? Yeah, yep. It is.
Oh, that was actually like somewhat of a difficult lethal to spot, kind of. But yeah, there it is. Just a lot of minions on board. We don't expect typically like people to be dying on turn 6, but when you're on this sort of board with a Wild Growth early on, curving out just tremendously, getting a Shade early on that did recursive damage or just reoccurring damage, it just really stacks up. And once again, we're gonna have a tied up series. We're gonna go on to Game 5 yet again.
It also just shows how powerful Wild Growth is, especially in the mirror. Whoever gets that Wild Growth is so far ahead sometimes because they get to make all their power plays a turn ahead of your other Druid, and that's what it comes down to, really, kind of like the mid game to late game power plays. And Host just had everything he needed. That Sylvanas was just, like I said, a beautiful Sylvanas setup there because it just made it so hard for Tom to even come back at all in that game because he would just lose his board every time, and ultimately he managed to get a really, really quick lethal.
Yeah, well, this time Tom is going to pay Hoj back with the Wild Growth in his opening hand.
The Druid of the Claw.
Yeah, do we remember what kind of Warlock Hoj was running? He's running...
a Zoo.
Okay.
Midlock.
Yeah, mid-range Demon Lock. Zoo, it goes by many names. But
Tom...
It's obviously known as the Reynad deck.
And Tom has the opportunity here to upset production again. But he was good last time. Nothing happened.
I've watched and like, first of all, I commentated and watched so many tournaments over the last few days, and this is like literally the first time I've seen it not bug out production. It's also the first time I've like actually addressed it on stream. So maybe that's the trick.
Just tell Blizzard what they're doing wrong on stream, and you'll be favored. They'll keep it from bugging.
Okay, so I've seen so pretty much druidless these days. They're pretty much 2 or 3 cards apart, and the difference is whether you play Ragnaros or Cenarius, and whether you play the Slothev. And I've been seeing Lotheb getting more and more common, simply because Rogue has gotten so common lately.
I like Lotheb in general in Druid anyway, because it protects your board from any board clears. Especially against Handlock as well. You can set him up to protect your board from say a Shadow Flame or something, just to secure like a lethal. But another thing I find with Druids as well is like the toss up between Azure Drake and Sludge Belcher, and running one of each, or running 2 Belchers, or running 2 Azure Drakes. Like the Azure Drakes, obviously, and I find if you run like say 2 Azure Drakes and no Belchers, and you run Rag, you're definitely going for the faster approach.
Oh yeah, pretty much like the life coach approach, as you may. Now, even though Wild Growth, we did see a Wild Growth on turn 2 from Tom. Like, his follow-ups are not that great at all. He didn't even want to use the Big Game Hunter in this matchup. Typically, you did want to do so against the faster Warlock, but now these kind of Warlocks, they run Power Overwhelmings plus Void Terrors, they run Sea Giants, they run Melganis, Dr. Boom, so you actually want to save that card.
It's crazy how traditionally Zoo didn't have any BGH targets, and now a year later you've got, at least you can have up to 4 or 5 depending on what the Void Terrors get up to. It's crazy like how much it's changed. One of the decks I think that's had one of the more dramatic changes recently, because Druid's kind of, like I said, it's kind of stayed the same. There's not much that's changed in the last year, whereas Zoo on the other hand, now it's more mid-lock, more mid-range with these big demon powerhouses, and BGH does get some value. So actually, looking at this, he went for the low feb here. So I guess
it makes him less likely to be blown out by Power Overwhelming, which Hoj indeed has. So
yeah,
it actually worked out for him pretty well. Good decision.
Yeah, it protects his board.
But now, what's the follow-up here, basically?
Yeah, this is where it gets awkward.
Not being able to play on curve is always awkward as Druid, and even though he got the Wild Growth off, like, did it really matter too much? Because he hasn't been able to like fully utilize his mana except for on turn 5.
He didn't have a Keeper. I think Keeper is quite important to help fight for the board, because it usually takes out a Flame Imp or a Knife Juggler, but you also have that 2/4 body, which you can start trading into stuff.
Well,
he didn't get that.
Even more importantly, to silence off this egg, or this egg is just going to get insane value here.
Yeah, for now, definitely egg. That's Keeper has a fuller range of value these days, because it can silence Sylvanas, silence eggs, silence Void Terrors. It's not just there to ping off a 3/2 like it used to when Zoo is a lot faster and had a lot of small minions. Nowadays it has a much broader use. So that Power of Woman does come down. It did protect his low feb originally, but it doesn't seem to matter anymore. It looks like Hoji's got such a head start here. I'm not sure how Tom's going to get out of this. His hand is just so slow.
Yeah, he can clear off some of the board with Force of Nature, but then we see Doomguard, the follow-up. And even Harrison Jones, I don't think there's any way for him to come back in this game.
But I usually find you use a Force of Nature to clear, and then the Warlock player just plays another minion, or just taps and plays 2 more minions. And you kind of feel like you didn't achieve anything, and which is why this matchup is just so much in favor of Warlock against Druid. So it kind of fell into the right place for Hoj in the overall games, in the overall match, that he got this last.
So Abusive Sergeant here is lethal. Power Overwhelming is lethal. If he doesn't draw it into anything, there's a possibility that Tom could stabilize with double Ancient of Lore. So we have to keep that in mind. And it looks like, no, nothing is drawn here.
That Knife Juggler may help clear up this low feb more efficiently. If he gets 1 dagger on it, he can just use the 1/1. But it looks like he's opting just to pop the Spider here. I don't know, I might have just tried the Void Walker first, and then thrown the 1/1 at it, because I think the Haunted Creeper before it pops is probably quite valuable, because it helps against swipe.
Yeah, I think he can definitely make the read that there's no swipe in Tom's hand, though. Although he might have drawn it in the past two turns. And also, this board isn't like too weak to swipe. And there we go. We have the spectator bug once again. But I think we can see this game probably is almost over at this point. Drawing two cards, he didn't really draw into anything. So, yeah, Doomguard comes down, and that's going to be it. Hoj advances on his phone with his parrot in his room while staring at his phone into the webcam, kind of. And he's going to move on to the final round, whereas Tom, unfortunately, once again, he fails to make the finals. He's going to drop to the third, fourth place match.
Yeah, unfortunate there for Tom. He kind of queued into the bad matchup at the end. But overall, it was a really good series. It was very back and forth. Both players showing some of the talents. We saw some interesting plays as well. That Sylvanas play was really cool. So yeah, Tom did really well, and it's unfortunate he wasn't able to make that push out of the first part of the bracket. But he does get an opportunity to get third place. He's probably accumulated quite a few GEICO points, I imagine, by now.
Oh yeah, definitely. GEICO points are something you want to keep in mind of. At the end of every single kind of tournament round, we take a look at the number of GEICO points you've accumulated, and we directly invite you to the future tournaments if you have the most GEICO points in your region for that round. Also, if you get enough GEICO points, we'll directly invite you to the PAX Prime Finals in Seattle at the end of August. So definitely something these open players, they keep playing these tournaments, and it actually makes a lot of sense. If you play in like all 16 tournaments, and even if you don't make it into a finals, you have actually a very good chance to make it to PAX Prime. So definitely something that the system was designed for, something that open players can look forward to. So if you want to support our tournament, if you want to support our sponsors, GEICO and VGVN, who are bringing you this excellent tournament of a 60K tournament prize pool, you can go to geico.onog.gg for your official chance to win an official TSM PC. Maybe check out GEICO, look at what quotes they can offer, and just support us overall. In addition, if you'd like to play in these tournaments and get casted by us or some other amazing casters, you can go to Liquid Hearth, where there'll be so many tournament signups, and you'll be to sign up. Registration is free. You can earn GEICO points, a lot of money, and also World Championship points. Right after this, we're going to take about a 3-minute break, but we're going to see the third place match, and right after that, the finals. So stay tuned.